This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Xcast. The truth is in here. This is our special Fight the Future Minute podcast. I am Kurt North and you are listening to the coverage of minute 85 of the X-Files Fight the Future, almost an hour and a half into it. This minute begins at 84 minutes as the well-manicured man reveals that he was ordered to kill Dr. Kurzweil, as he was also ordered to kill Mulder, and ends at 84:59 with Mulder asking, "What do you mean, may have?" when it comes to introducing the vaccine into an alien environment. To discuss this minute, I am joined once again by podcaster of the 250, Darren Mooney. Darren, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. We are getting through these minutes like there's no tomorrow, but there is a tomorrow, and it's our final minute.
For some of the cast, there's a tomorrow.
For some of the cast, there is a tomorrow. For some of us, and unfortunately, you take this in, Darren. Take this in. We have got this minute. And we have got next minute, and like the well-manicured man, we will not be seen again. But that is us for the entirety of Fight the Future. We'll, of course, in true X-Files fashion, though, be back in season 6. So, unlike the well-manicured man, we get to return.
But will we go out with a bang?
Well, that's too soon to tell. We've still got 2 episodes to record now. So this one and next one. So let's see if we do go out with a bang. And if there's anybody to witness it as well, especially rats, but we'll certainly find that out. So what about this minute then? So the vaccine. We've talked about the virus, but we haven't necessarily talked too much about the vaccine. So this vaccine was a plot device, obviously, and has been retrofitted into, like I said yesterday, that the. Yeah. That it was used, and obviously they used it in Patient X and Red and the Black. How do you think it fitted into the story and being used as a MacGuffin, but also into because the vaccine, we've actually got some great scientists on Fight the Future Minute. Actually, I think that Deana Ferreri talked about the virus and the coating of the diseases and stuff like that, which I'm completely destroying all of her good work. But so we have got people who are into the science, and obviously vaccine isn't necessarily the right word for what we're trying to do. You mentioned it a couple of episodes ago that it wasn't quite the right terminology for the virus. But how do you think that the vaccine works within the story and moving forward in the mythology as well?
Well, I mean, I feel like I didn't have to be a virologist to comment that, the well-manicured man's understanding of the virus as an extended metaphor for the opening sequence of the movie was not necessarily entirely scientifically accurate.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to pretend to be a genius whatsoever. I also do find it interesting that he refers to it as a weak vaccine.
Yes.
Again, I'm not a scientist or a virologist or a kind of a vaccination expert, but I do find that use of terminology kind of interesting because that's not how I understand vaccines working, in that you tend to be vaccinated and inoculated against something. It's preemptive rather than a treatment. I don't think that's how it works, but I feel like it's probably best not to pull at that thread too heavily, particularly given that I am not a science major in any way, shape or form. I have 2 siblings who are actual doctors as well, so I don't feel like I want to embarrass them particularly by trying to pull at that thread either. But I do kind of find that interesting. I find the kind of techno babble kind of stuff weird, where it's just instead of calling it a vaccine, just call it a cure. Although I suppose vaccine sounds more interesting and again has that kind of conspiracy or mythology underpinning to it, where you have, again, conspiracy theories about the smallpox vaccine. And I mean, even today, conspiracy theories around stuff like, say, Bill Gates developing a vaccine for COVID-19, which kind of gets at this kind of fear. And you understand, vaccinations are things that are given to everybody, or at least to people who are not necessarily infected, who are healthy, to prevent infection. And therefore, they are things that understandably generate fear and paranoia in conspiracy theorists because, there is a part of you that wonders inherently, if I'm healthy, why am I receiving a treatment for something that I don't have, and then therefore skeptical of it? So I kind of wonder if the use of vaccine or vaccination as terminology for, what the Well-Manicured Man's doing with the alien virus is largely a kind of a result or kind of stemming from the usage of that in 90s conspiracy culture. And I mean, the show itself has obviously hinted at the use of the smallpox vaccine as well, and it's become part of the mythology. So I understand kind of maybe why it leaned that way. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I mean, one of the things that it's only really coming back to me now but I'm recalling the time when this came out, that the vaccine, the way that I understood it, I mean, this is obviously, we're not scientists, I'm not saying, but the way I understood the methodology of bringing the vaccine in was that the alien-human hybrid kind of program was brought in because then you could survive the events happening. And the vaccine, exactly what you've just said about people having a vaccination against the virus from infecting you and becoming this, taking the film out of the equation, just having the black oil coming and infecting you and stuff like that, that a vaccination program would actually get you immune from that.
Yeah. And there is an element of that in Tunguska term, as I recall, and that's what the Russians are trying to do. That's why the vaccine is actually implemented there, because you have Mulder vaccinated and then covered in black oil. And the idea is that being vaccinated protects you from the black oil, which makes sense because that is how vaccinations work, even if I'm not sure that's how viruses work.
Yeah.
It feels like on the X-Files you either get one or the other. It's like either the virus works or the vaccine works.
Yeah.
One or the other. We've only got so much science we can use in this episode. We got to choose to use it wisely.
Yeah, exactly. And physically injecting the alien with a vaccine just seems counterproductive in my eyes. So, but I do remember thinking that at the time.
Steroids. Inject with steroids, right?
Yeah, so there was that I do remember being slightly off put by that, saying wasn't a vaccination against having, but anyway, that's just a story element. But one thing, obviously, but that was the vaccine aspect to it, and that's something I wanted to bring
Also, it's a weak vaccine is such a
weak
weird turn of phrase. It's a weak vaccine. It's like, well, you better hope that they only gave her 3/4 of a virus or half a virus, because otherwise this vaccine just ain't gonna cut it. It's and again, you understand why it is, because the language, and again, you have that, you mentioned that the moment closes on Mulder saying, may have. Because the idea is, again, to introduce stakes and drama, to get the audience going, ooh, maybe the vaccine won't work. Even though, again, the fact the movie has gone to the effort of introducing the vaccine and making a big deal of the vaccine and having Mulder recover the vaccine, at such effort and in such detail and with such emphasis on it, that, if the vaccine was actually going to misfire and not work, it would be a hell of a swerve. And it would be kind of a very sharp twist, kind of arguably worthy of something like M. Night Shyamalan, in terms of movie plotting, to pull it off. But it does feel kind of like calling it a weak vaccine is just a really cheap way to raise stakes, because you're sitting in the audience, you're going, oh, maybe the vaccine won't work. Just like, as we mentioned already, during this sequence, you're meant to be going, oh, maybe the Well-Manicured Man is going to shoot Mulder in the face with half an hour of the movie left.
Yeah. Well, I want to actually say something here, because there's I would liken it, it's not got nothing like this, by the way, but I would liken it to me trying to de-flea my cat, right? So I've got something that I put in the back of my cat's neck that my cat looks at me in disgust and walks out and goes, what the hell are you doing? I'm getting out of here, right? And that's basically what the vaccine does, doesn't it? Because at the end of the film, they inject it and it's like, what the hell have you done to me? I'm not happy about this. I'm going to go. It's not like, oh, by the way, you've destroyed the whole alien race. You've kind of gone, oh, you're an annoyance to me. You're just an annoyance. Which I think is amazing.
It is. And again, that's that management of stakes. Maybe that's why it's a weak vaccine.
Yeah.
Because the way the Well-Manicured Man kind of says, it sounds like he's expecting something like, Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum flying up to the alien ship, plugging in their Apple and downloading the vaccine, and this gigantic explosion, taking place in the middle of the snowy tundra. And in the end, what you just get is Scully waking up. And it's like, well, guess it was a weak vaccine. I was expecting explosions, more explosions. Boom.
All right. Okay. Okay. Let's move away from that.
We have kind of jumped ahead.
No, it's okay. That's fine. But I do want to ask a question, right? Okay. So I know that in the X-Files, you can't really take anything at face value with people lying, people not really telling the whole truth. But one thing that really frustrated me a little bit was I was ordered to kill Dr. Kurzweil as I was ordered to kill you. It's like, no, you weren't. Because Struckhold early in the season went, you've got to take away which he holds most valuable. It's like, well, pick a side.
The well-manicured man's like, I figured out what Mulder holds most valuable. It's himself.
Yeah.
He just confirmed it when he's like, I want to get out now. Like, that was the test. It was literally to determine what Mulder holds most valuable. It turns out it's his life. I'm just going to shoot him. That's the deal. Well, I mean, again, like, part of me wonders if we should save this discussion for later, but feck it, I'm just going to jump right on in there.
Go for it.
Right, so, the well-manicured man is ordered to kill Kurzweil, right?
Yeah.
And he kills Kurzweil.
He does.
He's ordered to kill Mulder, and he doesn't. And part of me is like, and the reason why he doesn't, and it's implied that one of the reasons why he doesn't, he says to save his kids or whatever, but it's also because he starts to feel dirty and guilty and ashamed of what he's done, right?
Yeah.
Why in the name of goodness would he kill Kurzweil first? It seems like that moment or question or moment of kind of doubt and uncertainty, the point at which he decides he's going to help Mulder, doesn't happen in the 60 seconds between the well-manicured man bumping into Kurzweil in the alley and Mulder stumbling out in the darkness. There's no real moment since the well-manicured man, who already has the vaccine and coordinates handy, has suddenly gone, wow, what have I done with my life? I'm glad I really got to take stock. No more killing for me today. I'm going to blow up this car, turn myself over, and help Mulder do a good thing. So there's a sense in which that decision has already been made. He's already kind of had that journey. He's already reached that point. So it feels rather weird that he kills Kurzweil anyway. It feels rather mean-spirited and vindictive. Poor Kurzweil. If Kurzweil had arrived at that meeting half an hour later, he would still be alive because the well-manicured man would have blown himself up anyway and not killed Mulder. It just seems rather mean, vindictive, and surprisingly petty on the part of the well-manicured man. And I get, again, this is the thing where you mention that idea of it being a blockbuster and it having to smooth over all this stuff and it having to kind of tie up all its loose ends and there needing to be a blood sacrifice, needing to get rid of Kurzweil, but also, thematically needing the well-manicured man to be soiled by having murdered Kurzweil as well, and therefore feeling perhaps shamed by it, even though it makes absolutely no sense in terms of internal character logic. I can never, I've watched the movie several times and I can't wrap my head around why, the well-manicured man was ordered to kill Kurzweil and apparently Mulder at the same time, and somehow killing Mulder is unconscionable, but killing Kurzweil, well, I'll just load that bad boy into my trunk as I'm going. I've just been waiting to do this for a long time.
Yeah, it does feel a bit off, doesn't it? Because especially his mannerism at that time as well is I've done a good thing here. And then he's like, it means to save Scully. And it's well, hang on a second. You've just...
If only somebody could have saved Kurzweil, he says, staring into middle distance. If only. I
mean, it's not a delayed reaction of a sudden thing of consciousness. Archie's saying, actually, he's in the boot. I'm not happy with this. I tell you what, let's save Mulder.
Yeah, you're missing a deleted scene where he's loading Kurzweil into the trunk and Kurzweil's mobile phone rings with daughter or something on it, and well-manicured man's this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. Fine.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, it is a good point. What I do like is Mulder's reaction, which is a typical Mulder, which is when and it does work actually. I think as a jump scare when well-manicured man actually does go and shoot the driver.
The driver.
And his facial expression when he does it is unbelievable. He is so ready to do that. And so instead of killing Mulder, he kills the driver because the driver's going to obviously say stuff. And we've been alluding to that all the time. That's meant to be your twist. That's your Chamberlain twist there. But then Mulder's question of why the upholstery's already ruined, which is a total David Duchovny, Mulder kind of line to say, isn't it? I think it works really well to give a bit of levity to that scene.
Yeah. I mean, and again, the thing about the driver, part of me is wondering, is the well-manicured man just kind of Breaking Bad? Has he decided basically, I'm dead. My life is over. I'm going to protect my kids because, and as we all know from the last minute or the minute before that, protecting your kids is what makes you a truly selfless human being and a hero, and therefore excuses anything else that you might possibly do or want to do or plot to do or possibly even like kill, murder, massacre, or destroy. So part of me wonders if the well-manicured man, there's a real sense of kind of Breaking Bad about it. You mentioned that look on his face when he turns and pulls the trigger on the driver. Part of me wonders if like the well-manicured man has had a vaguely kind of psychotic break from reality, and he's just like, fine, I'm going to die, I'm going to save my kids, I'm going to save Mulder, I'm going to do one good thing, but you know what I've always wanted to do? Kill a man, stuff him in my trunk, and shoot a dude in a car. So I'm going to knock those off my bucket list. Oh, I've also really, really, really wanted to sit in a cool limousine as it explodes, like in a blockbuster movie. So I'm also going to do that as well. Because there's part of me wonders in terms of the driver, right? So the driver, who obviously is not Krychek, right?
No.
Is the driver an assassin? Is the driver like a handyman? We mentioned the weird imagery of kind of like the well-manicured man standing by the trunk, as if implying that, you know, the driver just stood by idly while the well-manicured man kind of loaded Kurzweil in and kind of pulled the trunk down on him. So is the driver just like a handyman who just kind of stands by and has no real like a no violence clause in his contract with the syndicate, where he's like, okay, I'm going to see some weird stuff as a limo driver, but I just want to know I'm observing, not participating. And so as a result, like, does the murder of the driver seem like ridiculously unnecessary? Because like, surely if the driver was a killer, the well-manicured man would have used him to kill Kurzweil instead of doing it himself, unless he was getting some kind of sick thrill out of it. But no, I mean, more seriously though, I do wonder, like, what is the deal with the driver? Did the driver just show up to work because Krychek called in sick that day? I was just like, yeah, finally, going in the big leagues. I'm going to be driving this posh old British dude. Looks like he's got lots of money, meeting lots of important people. This is going to be great for my career. I can see it. Stepping stone. Today, well-manicured man. Tomorrow, maybe first elder. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll be doing struggle. It'll be fantastic. This is the dream, baby. He kisses his wife goodbye. He pats his small child on the head as he goes to work, puts on his little chauffeur cap, stops for a coffee along the way, says hi to Frank, checks in on Frank's kids. You know, Frank's been having some money trouble, so he gives him a little extra tip, goes along his way, whistling Dixie. You know, part of me wonders, like, what is the driver's deal? You know, what is going on?
But what about the fact that, you know, he's driving well-manicured man, and he seems to have some like pull over that, because it's like he's staring, he's looking ominously, you know, once it's learned what I've told you, why would the driver go and say anything? That's what I don't get.
That's a sort of like violation of like chauffeur passenger privilege. I feel like that the driver clearly has never watched Die Hard. He's never understood how this relationship is supposed to work between the chauffeur driver and his passenger. And again, it feels rather weird that it's like the well-manicured man wouldn't have enough sway. The well-manicured man has enough sway to get Krychek to be his driver regularly, but apparently doesn't have enough sway to prevent the syndicate from putting an assassin in his front seat, but a really lazy assassin who won't actually do any assassinating unless, you know, he's asked or something. It's like, you know, I love the idea of the well-manicured man dragging Kurzweil over and the chauffeur being, sorry dude, not in my contract, you know, sorry, I'd love to help you, but can't my back, it's just, you know, I'm sorry, it's extra. You got to pay for the hour if you want that kind of service. And I do kind of like, it's just such a weird touch, because it is dramatic, it is effective, it jolts you in your seat when it happens. But there's so much weirdness that would have to make that make sense, that you're like, how does it all fit together? Like, part of me is wondering, did he just shoot an innocent dude? Like, some guy who was like just driving the car, like, because again, like, if you're driving a limo, right, and I'm sure, you know, I've talked to people who do like chauffeuring and stuff like that, and they say that it's mostly quite boring. But one imagines that, you know, if you're driving a limo in Washington, you're going to pick up interesting people. They're going to have interesting stories. And all of a sudden, you pick up this British dude, right? And you're doing this job for a day. He picks up this guy who's already kind of disheveled. And they start talking about aliens. They start talking about things like alien invasions and vaccines and plots to colonize the world and, you know, all this sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, sure. I'm going to be honest. My eyes would be caught like glimpsing in the rearview mirror if that was going on. I'd be like, yeah, I'm kind of curious about this. I want to know more about this, you know? And it's, so part of me's wondering, like, is the driver just an innocent bystander in all this? Like, is the driver just some guy who came into work on the wrong day and ended up getting shot in the face because the well-manicured man was having a bit of a bad one?
Maybe he's just a character assassination person that he uses, and his thing is with his eyes. That's he literally can like have all this information because he's a chauffeur. He collects that information, and and he just goes to the highest bidder.
There we go. Yeah,
I'll go with that. But yours would be better. I can imagine. Can you imagine like coming home from work? Hello, darling. What did you get up to today? Well, don't tell anyone, but we killed somebody in an alleyway. We chucked him into a boot. We then drove around Washington talking about alien conspiracies and dads being horrible people and dads being selfless people by allowing kids to be abducted and being tested on with an alien human hybrid program. The guy who was actually in the car was actually going against the syndicate. I only did the first Elder, only drove the first Elder the other day. He was talking about this train car thing. And then it's
big guy like Brando, right?
Yeah, a bit like Brando talks a little bit like this, and you get all that aspects, and and then he decided to bring this young dude, this just FBI agent in apparently, who was wearing some ill-fitted clothing. And starts talking.
Asked me to pull into an alleyway. I've worked in Washington. I know how this works. Eyes forward, all that sort of stuff. No judgment here. Just saying.
Yeah, and that was it. That's the end. So you can imagine like an alternative parallel universe where he doesn't get killed and goes home and just says that. So
have you seen Austin Powers? Like that gag with the henchman. I'm kind of imagining something vaguely like that. It's like this wife sitting at home getting the phone call, being like, "Oh, your husband was shot in the face and then blown up." Okay, cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah, just carry on.
Yeah, Frank's not going to be able to make beers tonight.
He
was shot in the face and blown up.
There's a lot of weird going on. The kids in the playground as well saying, "I saw those door-to-door salesmen." So they're
the X-Files America is a very weird place.
Oh, fantastic! Right, I think we may have lost the plot now. But yeah, I think we'll call that a day unless you've got anything else for this minute. This minute ends with getting out of the car, and what I've given you is the alien colonists don't know exists and all that vaccine which we've talked about, and destroy the delicate plans we have so assiduously protected for the last 50 years. And then that's when Mulder
says... How long
do
you think he rehearsed that monologue?
Probably,
how long do you think the well-manicured man kind of stood in front of the mirror that morning?
Well-manicured man rather than
Insidious
the actor.
or Assidious? Yeah.
Okay.
So what do we think? Do we think Insidious or Assidious? Assidious. I like that. Yes. We'll go with that. You do wonder, because again, it really feels like, again, the well-manicured man's thought it, this is my last day. He probably had a couple of martinis before he did this as well.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I've been wanting to just lay this out for years. I've been working on this. It's like, like the cigarette smoking man in Musings of the Cigarette Smoking Man, where he writes his life kind of as this kind of, this mystery, this Jack Colquette mystery. I kind of love the idea of the well-manicured man being like, well, I've been preparing this monologue for 5 years. You're going to sit there and listen. That, you insolent little pup. But it's like, I stop the car. I want to get out now. It's like, no. There's still a minute and a half left.
Yeah, I want to talk my story before I go off. You've ruined my plans.
Yeah. I mean, you throw me off. Where was I? What was my line? Yeah. What was my place?
Right. Okay. We're going to call this minute draw this minute to an end. Tomorrow, we're going to see that we're going to find the plans. We're going to ask Mulder to go and find Scully, and it will be our final minute as well for the Fight the Future minute. So again, Darren, thank you. Last minute for us too. Our job here is done. We will hand it over to some other guests and hosts, and also as the film progresses, get to the end, and we'll catch up with Tony and Carl and Sarah and the like as well as we get headed towards the end of the movie. So there's plenty to go on, but before we do say a final farewell, we have one more minute to do, which we'll do tomorrow. So until next time, remember, as always, trust no one.
Elsewhere on We Made This. The giddy carousel of pop.
So there's just one thing we need to know. Where were you on the 13th of July 1985?
I definitely watched the whole of Live Aid, sat 2 inches away from the telly. My mum and my stepdad and my stepsister coming in and out and trying to prise me away from the telly and not really managing.
I was in Wembley. I took a day off work. They didn't believe I was going. I had to show them the ticket.
Went to a dog show at Malvern. And saw Auntie Sandra and Uncle Jeff.
I was there. Me and a school friend went. My mum and dad drove us down. They had a day in London. We went to the concert.
movie palace.
So, Carl, what is White Heat about for you?
For me, it's about where the gangster genre is at this point in time. And I think one of the interesting things to look at with gangster films is always like, how do they take the temperature of the time that they're made? So I suppose it comes at a very interesting time in terms of like globally, doesn't it? You had the proclamation of the People's Republic of China, you had the Soviet Union testing the atomic bomb, stuff like that, So there's something interesting about this film, which ends with this big explosion at the chemical factory, which comes along at this time of like nuclear tension.
Between the notes.
I think it's important to remember throughout the 1990s into the early 2000s, there were loads and loads of chill-out albums that were released, like repeatedly. They were all over the place. My dad always used to collect those. He used to buy them. And Morricone was always on those, which is another sign of how remarkable he was. He could cross over into the mainstream populist sphere, and the score for The Mission was always on those albums, particularly Gabriel's oboe, which is an interesting story. I looked this up. So Jeremy Irons plays the character of Gabriel in the movie, and he performs the oboe. Well, he mimes playing the oboe in the film, and then that's obviously overdubbed with the music.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.